So normally, when something goes wrong with your electricity, it is not a beautiful day like this. But what I wanted to discuss with you today was what I use to keep power for my reef tank when things go wrong. I keep my generator in here. Originally I built this to keep the generator away from the weather, but the instructions of this one said that you had to have it out in the open where it has fresh air. So I bring it out to about here. And then I have a big power cord. With a giant plug. This is the third generator I've purchased since I've been in the hobby, and this is the biggest one I bought. This is the Firman T07571. It uses 3 different fuels, so you can use gasoline, which is ideal, natural gas, or propane. Now if you use propane, it's going to use up the gas more quickly because of the fuel ratio. With gasoline, I can go a super long time. I don't remember all the details. I think this holds about 8 gallons of gasoline. I can easily go 12 hours before I have to refill it. Now the reason I got this one is because it was on sale and it had a 50 amp outlet. And 50 amps is exactly what I send to my fish room now. Now that might seem like a lot, but if you have two 20 amp circuits, that's 40 amps. So 50 isn't really that big. But I have a 50 amp breaker that goes to a sub panel, and the sub panel has 6 circuit breakers on it, each individually running something in the fish room. Now, if you have a generator, you're gonna need one of these too. I've been trying to get more organized over the years, so I keep all my power cords in one spot where I can just fish them out immediately and not have to look for them. Now, what I really like about this generator is that it has a battery to start it. Instead of having to pull a rope like you do with a lawnmower, I can press this button and it'll attempt to turn on. But there's something else you need to know about a gasoline-powered generator. That is, it has a choke that you need to adjust before you start it, or it'll just keep trying to start it and never actually turn on. Right here would be when you're running the generator. This is where you're going to be when you're starting it. This right here is our fuel gauge, and as you can see, we have less than 1/4 of a tank left. If I turn this knob to here, it's for gasoline. If I turn it this way, it's going to be for propane or for natural gas. If I use propane or natural gas, I have to choose which one I'm going to use on this gauge. So here's natural gas, here's propane. But I only use it with gasoline. And you can see the light is on. It got juice from the battery. Each time this is started up, it's going to recharge the battery, which always keeps the battery fresh. Now, here's our on-off button. Here is our circuit breaker. This is the 50 amp feed. This is the 30 amp feed. See the difference in plug sizes? Then you've got another 30 amp. So you got 2 choices of the plug types. And then finally, you have the regular outlets that you're probably familiar with a GFCI built in. I want to start the generator before I plug it into any kind of power cords. Just get it operational. So it's going to be a little loud. And then once I've got it going, I've adjusted the choke on there, I'll plug in the big plug. The other end of that big thick wire is this one right down here, and I'm going to uncoil this and we're going to plug it in right there. I gave myself extra slack just because you never know. And then this only fits on one way. So you got to make sure that these line up properly. And then you can tighten this thumb screw on here to kind of help hold it in place. At this point, I'm ready for electricity from the generator by just pushing this breaker that way. Here you can see a little bit of a close-up. By the way, this little lid has a green light to show you that there's power coming from the generator, which is kind of cool. And then it's going to control that sub panel. So we flip this. Now we're on generator power. The reef never knew I changed anything. But the only thing that's electricity right now is this fish room. So at that point, the rest of the house would be silent, and I'd have to run some extension cords to the rest of the rooms where I need power. Now, how do I reverse this? I just flip it back. Now we're on power from the city. Disconnect this. Just coil up the coil again, and go ahead and turn off the generator. Now, a few things I want you to know about running a generator. Number one, you never want to run it indoors. You don't want to put it inside the garage, close the garage door. This generator would literally turn itself off because it has a CO2 sensor to disable the engine. So if it's not getting plenty of fresh air around it, it's going to turn itself off, which means you don't have any backup power anyway. But the fumes are very dangerous to you. They can give you really bad headaches. It can lead to convulsions and throwing up and worse. So we want to make sure it's outside in the open. It's going to be noisy. That's okay. People understand it when there's a power outage. But you should also test your generator when things are perfect. When the weather's beautiful like today, make sure it turns on, make sure it powers everything, make sure all the connections are good, and make sure that your gasoline is fresh in there. If you can buy special fuel mixes that are designed to be super clean. I think they're higher in ethanol, and those are less likely to clog stuff up. You also need to stay on top of oil changes. After running your generator 2 or 3, 4 times, depending how long you had to run it, you may need to go ahead and change that oil so that everything's tip-top. You want to make sure that the air filter on the front is nice and clean. When you turn it off, this is a really important rule, and it's funny because mine doesn't have this, so I can't show it to you. But a lot of generators, under the gas tank itself, there's a valve, and you close that, or you open it to allow fuel into the carburetor. And usually you would close that line, so now no fuel can get past the tank into the carburetor, and you let it just turn itself off by running out of fuel. It starves itself to death, and the carburetor doesn't have any more fuel in the line, so it can't turn to gum, which happened to me with one of my generators. I didn't do this, and it turned to rubber like a gummy bear. And then when there was this huge storm, I couldn't start it. And when I tried to fix it, I broke it, so I had to buy a new generator. So I'm encouraging you to make sure you do proper maintenance, understand how to use your system, understand how to burn off the extra fuel, or how to drain all the fuel out if you want to leave it empty, because it's going to sit for a long time. But the number one rule is get a generator, put it together, and test it. Don't just own it in a box, because the day you need it, you don't want to spend an hour putting it together and trying to figure out how to use it with flashlights and storms and people freaking out around you. Okay, after that all cools off, then I'll go ahead and put it away, and it'll be ready for next time. Now, I wanted to reiterate, when you're trying to get all this stuff to work, usually it's during a power outage, it's pitch dark, it's freezing, it's raining, it's storming. There's lots of reasons why power can go out, besides not paying the bill. So you want to make sure that you know the system and how to hook it all up, because that way everything will go really smoothly. And if you don't do that, if you try to figure it out on the fly, it's going to be a lot harder. You don't need to run everything in your aquarium. You need to run the basics. If you have a system with a sump, you want the return pump on for sure. If you have circulation pumps, turn them on inside the display tank itself. Lighting doesn't matter. Heating may matter a lot depending on what time of year it is and what the temperature of your room is, where the aquarium is. But you don't have to run the lights. You don't have to run reactors. You don't have to run a lot of things. In my case, I can run everything plus. I can run the refrigerator, TV, the internet. I can get everything operational because I have 50 amps to play with. But it all comes down to the size of the generator that you purchased. So I hope this was helpful to you, and if you have any questions, just ask me in the comments below.